when I was still in India, and Sivananda said to me, and then you start an ashram, and have many centers all over the country. It's very necessary to have centers of light because there are many dark clouds in the sky. And here he spoke about clouds of destiny, of course. And then he said, go where there is water in the front and big trees around and mountains. The mountains will give you strength. That's the whole of BC. Where would you by any means finding a place like this? And we traveled around. We lived in Burnaby, in Vancouver, and had problems of finding the place. And then we were in Calgary, stayed in a motel. I bought a newspaper, and I saw on the whole page of all sorts of ads, only one. Rambling country house, 5 bedrooms, on beautiful Kootenay Lake. And I said, we are 7, we need 2 more. Now maybe this could be enlarged. Let's go there and find out. We come to Kootenay Lake. It's almost embarrassing to say how naive we are when we started here. In 61, 62, we were on the search. And I had the address, me, the phone number. We get off, we be here on the ferry, and we went to see the place. And he said, oh, but this is a Calgary phone number. We don't have a phone here. The Kootenays didn't have telephone in those days. We only have radio telephone. And he said, well, if you look for land, go to Mr. Fraser. So he described to us how we would find Mr. Fraser. Mr. Fraser has some land for sale. He looked at me and he said, you don't have any money. And I didn't know what to do and what to say. All these negotiations, if there were anything, but that's the key word these days, were quite strange to me. And so he showed me his property. We walked around, and I said, I don't see the place where the temple is. If I find the property where the temple is supposed to be, this would be the right place. So then he took us here. The Browns had the property in the market for 7 years and couldn't sell. So we, and like usual, like men are, and I don't think, now all the men who come to the ashram here are always excluded. Not for reasons of politeness, because you are here to take another step in your human development. But men on the outside don't do this. So here is Mr. Fraser and Mr. Brown walking, and I'm trotting behind. They're talking to each other. I thought I was the one who was interested in the land and will finally present the check if necessary. So they walk, I trot behind. The grass was this high going to the north end of the beach. And then they turn around and said, well, now you can follow us and we show you the other side of the property. I had a feeling that I wasn't walking on the ground, and I knew at this moment, this is the property. But I had to have more assurance. So we go to the other side of on the end, where now Ganesh house is in Parvati. And I stand there on the border, which run between the 2 properties, and look down the beach. So I look down the beach, and you can do that yourself. Doesn't look anything special. The stones are all dry and dull. But when I looked down, they weren't. It was just like a whole range of all sorts of precious and semi-precious stones. I have often gone there and said, they must have been wet, that they looked so beautiful and reflected so much light. Anyhow, I knew this was a property. I had to leave next day on a tour that would take me all across America, over to New York and down to Florida. I said, here is a check of $500. I can be back before 2 months. And I cannot make any changes, unfortunately. But he said this was good enough, and he would hold it. Then I came back, I came with the boys here, and they were absolutely out of their mind. They ran around, it was great. They didn't know at that time how much work when you go in the wilderness and you have to do all these things. And now then, when we came back and we finalized when the boys were thinking was fine, we came in a truck, in a car, so they went back to Vancouver. This time now, Mr. Fraser invited me to stay in his house. His wife was in those days still alive. And then he said, now what do you want to do with this land? So I tell him, and he said, oh yeah, there were lots of people who had such utopia ideas. But never mind, it's very refreshing to see this happen once again. And then he said, now do you speak any of those Indian languages? I think you mean Sanskrit, or whatever it is. And he said, I have a plan of the land. And he came with a big plan, of which here, this estate was only one. There are 5. We have now 2 of Yasodhara original estate. And he said, what does it mean? Is that Sanskrit? And I said, it's a name, Indian name. It is the name of Lord Buddha's wife, and it is the name of Lord Krishna's foster mother. And he said, so what will you call it? I said, I leave the name. And when some of the Indian Swamis came out here from my guru, they said, how can you call it Yashoda? I said, the name was given to the land. And I said, I think here was the sign of destiny. Why should I change the name? I can see. So it took a while before they accepted and understood that it wasn't becoming Sivananda Ashram. But I felt it was the teachings that are Sivananda, not a name. And then I said, Yashoda. Women are going to come. Up till then, I had lived with 7 young men who all tried to work out their problems on my back that they had with their mother. Even so, I would often say, look, I'm not your mother. I don't want to be anybody's mother. On a spiritual field, that's a different story. So that's the story of Yashoda. And then with the help of a great devotee, we could acquire also the next door property. And so we have number 5 and number 6 of the original Yashoda estate. How did the place got the name? There were many English military people in service in India, and when this changed, they came. They didn't like England. It was too tight, too small, too restricted, and they didn't have a bunch of servants. So they came out here. The English crown gave them the land. And like also the French have rewarded their people by giving them land in Canada. And so somebody gave this big piece of property the name Yasodhara. So, and now look, there are quite a few women. I used to think, what's wrong with me that women don't come here? I mean, they come visiting, but now we have a lot of Swami women, Swamini, it should be in fact, Yogini. So that's the story of Yashoda. Now you have it all in your pocket. All along.